Okay, so the first episode is called Silly Samuel. It's all right, it's a good beginner episode. I was not a huge fan of Silly Samuel. They introduced a doctor in this episode who will reappear in a later episode, which I thought was cool that he appears in this and then, is in a later one as a little side character. It's always cool to see a character that returns that doesn't really do that much. Um, anyway, it was an okay episode. Probably the funniest part of the episode was him having a shit eating grin on his face after he punches the doctor in the face. Charlie and Pim try and say it's an accident, but it clearly isn't. The second episode is once again about Mr. Frog, and it's alright. I've never been a huge fan of the Mr. Frog character. A lot of people are, I'm not. I think he's fine. He has his moments here and there. I think he was best used in his first episode. Uh, in season two, I didn't like the episode at all that he was in. Like he wasn't even like a redeeming factor of the episode. Um, this episode's fine. A lot of people got a lot of praise for this episode online. There's a lot of like sad edits, but was not a huge fan. I thought it was pretty funny though at times. Mole Man is the first episode that I actually really enjoyed. I thought it was pretty funny. Mole Man was a cool character. We got some funny jokes in there. Mr. Boss trying to instantly replace Charlie and Pim, and his little dance he does was really funny. The fourth episode's a Halloween special. It's pretty funny, but they basically just do what they've already done with Pim in an episode that wasn't a, special. Back in season one, Pim goes crazy and, tries to kill Charlie, but accidentally ends up killing Mip instead. And they basically just do that here, but it's all like a vision, so it didn't actually happen. The end gag at the, after the credits is probably one of the funniest ending gags there is with the witch and her boyfriend. Um, Still, my favorite ending gag, though, will always be the one with Mr. Boss arguing with the devil in hell. The fifth episode is Pim and Charlie Save Mother Nature. Pretty funny episode. I love the ending with the reveal that it was just a picture of Mr. Boss's asshole, and Charlie had thought it was like a legitimate thing that he wanted to go get a picture of. He thought it was like this crazy thing like Bigfoot, and if he gets a picture, he's going to be famous. But it was just Mr. Boss telling him a joke and Charlie believing it. And, it's such a good ending. End credit scene isn't really funny. It's just Mothman's dad has a funeral. I think it was supposed to be funny though. The sixth episode, Squim Returns, is my favorite. Squim isn't the only one returns. DJ Spit is confirmed alive. He dies in, I believe, the third episode of season three. Well, I mean, the third episode of season two. And, like he crashes the helicopter, he gets impaled. And last we see him, he's calling for a hospital, tells Siri to call a hospital. But I had assumed he was going to die from that. I thought that they had did what they could with his character and he was done. But he comes back and he steals the show with just a few lines. With, I told you, man, the devil. DJ Spit is a really funny character. So, he comes back for a little bit. He doesn't get to do too much. Squim Returns just has a lot of good jokes. Squim's eventual demise, which ends up not really being his demise, was pretty funny too, with him doing the Squim dance and the police being threatened by it, saying, he's doing the Squim dance, shoot him, is just such a funny joke. And then on top of that, they start shooting his ghost too. And I also liked before the whole shooting thing even happened, you see one cop that's just constantly reloading in the background, which I thought was really funny. Um, the seventh episode is a parody of the Smurfs called The Shamoogles. It's fine. There's some really funny jokes here and there. The Shamoogles get really buff, but then when they actually go to do the battle, they're back to normal, which I thought was kind of lame. It is Smiling Friends, so continuity isn't, you know, always a thing, but it is a thing. Like in the very first episode, Pim, no, not Pim, Charlie getting his nose bit by Alan, and then they bring it up in season 2. And then, of course, you know what? DJ Spit, he has a scar on his chest to show that he survived the helicopter crash. So, just a little weird that they decided to not continue continuity with that. And then the final episode is the Glep episode. Even though he technically already got one with his second episode in season 1 that was about Mr. Frog, had a lot of focus on Glep. Um, anyway, this one was not a huge fan of. We get some like backstory on Glep, and apparently he's been alive for a long time, and that's pretty much it. Like we see that he created the plague apparently. You know, he was friends with some of the very first presidents like George Washington and stuff. But then, you know, the episode itself just isn't very funny to me. There isn't much to it. And then at the same time, it contradicts a little bit an episode that was just 2 episodes ago with Squim. Because Squim is the first ever smiling friend. Yet apparently Glep is the reason Mr. Boss started the business in the first place. Wouldn't that make Glep the first smiling friend? Even though technically he never went out and made people smile? Uh, it is all worth it though in the end. Because the bit at the very end of the episode is hilarious with the random guy who starts narrating and he makes a insensitive joke and Charlie gets on his ass. What group are you talking about, man? Just say it. I love that. It's such a funny bit. It is a little disappointing. It just kind of ends out of nowhere. I wish it would have continued more. But yeah, pretty solid season. Smiling Friends just it keeps getting good, man.